All right, finally. Shalom, shalom. Good to see you. I hope you were finding some time to reflect and find light in the shadows that seem to cast over our reality. No surprise that the shadows cast over our reality. It's our opportunity to figure out how to bring light to our lives and to our world around us. And so I think it's really great that we're going to study some Jewish mysticism, which ultimately is about finding and bringing light to the world. So we have Sam Sagi calling in. So Sam, are you joining the class?
Yes, yes, I'm going to join you now.
All righty. Okay. No problem.
Right here.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you right near the phone by the computer. So just listen carefully, and we'll go from there. All right. So let's bless. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign over time and space, makes us holy with commandments, commands us to engage in the study of Torah, and today to bring the light of Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, to our lives. So welcome one and all. Welcome, Sam. Let's see who else we have here. We have, 9394.
Marcia.
Marcia. All right, so let's put Marcia's name here. All right. And, all right, so, let's see. Okay. All righty then. So let's take a look at our text. By the way, if you want to raise a question, do so. Don't put it in the chat box today. It's a little difficult to keep track of the questions sometimes. Easier if you just say, Rabbi, I've got a question. All right? Now, Marcia, I will check in from time to time with you because I put you on mute, your phone that is, on mute. And so we'll have to just sort of check in once in a while because I don't think you can unmute yourself. But we will check in, all right? So, all right, so let us continue. So we're going to revisit the fifth gate, Malachei Elyon, messengers of the Most High. Remember last time we talked, among other things, about puzzle pieces and people who possess such pieces, puzzle pieces in our lives, and bring those pieces into our lives, sometimes unbeknownst to them. They're not necessarily there to be a messenger, but they are for us in one way or another, and we have the same power in others' lives. And so somebody brings an idea or a thought or an opportunity or a relationship, all of which have a way of completing us in one way or another if we're open to the wisdom of those puzzle pieces, however they manifest. So I thought we would revisit the fifth gate and take one more look at a text. Gives us some sense of the meaning of Malachei Elyon. And so I would like to invite Linda to read Ordinary People.
Ordinary people. And so we understand that ordinary people are messengers of the Most High. They go about their tasks in holy anonymity, often even unknown to themselves. Yet if they had not been there, if they had not said what they said or did what they did, it would not be the way it is now. We would not be the way we are now. Never forget that you too, yourself, may be a messenger, perhaps even one whose errand extends over several lifetimes.
Okay. All right. So, holy anonymity. Ordinary people. Tasks unknown, but tasks that have a major impact on people. We wouldn't be who we are if we hadn't come into contact with these ordinary heroes, these anonymous heroes that have done something to impact our lives, even over a lifetime. Even over several lifetimes. It's interesting. It's a nice segue into our conversation about Gilgulim, cycles of return. Has anybody ever met someone who seemed fairly ordinary at first, but ended up having a really powerful impact on your life in a way that somehow completed you? Marsha, I'm checking in. Do you have an answer to that question? Marsha,
Yes.
do you have an answer to the question?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't want to, I just wanted to ask. Very good.
Okay.
No problem. So, anybody have an answer to that question? Are you thinking about it?
I would say yeah.
Okay.
I can't come up with an example right now, but I know I've met people who on the surface seemed very ordinary, but wound up having a profound effect on my life.
Good. Good. Look, the invitation here is to think about how people impact our lives. What it suggests, Iris, for you at least, is that there are such individuals.
Yeah.
This is not just an abstract concept. All right. One of the reasons why Rabbi Kushner talks about ordinary people is that it takes it out of abstraction. These are people we know, who are Malachem Elyon, who are messengers from the Most High. Now, they may in fact be anonymous, so anonymous they don't even realize themselves that they are here to make a difference. I'm a big fan of concepts like synchronicity or serendipity, in a sense, being at the right place at the right time to receive a message that I may not have been aware I needed to have or receive. But I end up driving in a particular place and I see a sign on the road and it tells me something that I wasn't thinking about before, and it gives me a chance to evolve and grow and seek my purpose and to define my purpose and to exercise my purpose in the world. And I think of moments that I wasn't expecting to happen, and they happen and they change me. So why couldn't it be also true that there are individuals in our lives who are vessels of such synchronicity, who are containers of such serendipity, who may not even realize they are such things, and yet they are so impactful?
Rabbi,
Yes.
I think of some of the people that you see in the events that are occurring now, who step up and who are cleaning up, doing stuff, just going about what they need to do, no matter who's there and no matter what's going on. They're just trying to help things move. Ordinary people.
Yeah, right. Ordinary people just doing what they do, not necessarily intentional about the impact they're making on everybody, maybe intentional about the impact they're trying to make in the moment for themselves, maybe those for whom they know they're connected and impactful. But that doesn't mean that along the way, they don't pick up people like us in some unintended, anonymous way and bring us to, a place of greater wholeness or greater purpose. Iris, thank you.
So I have two thoughts. One, extrapolating on the events, the current events. George Floyd has become a vessel of change, we hope and pray.
Yeah.
Something that I don't think he ever thought about. And there are people in the protests who have stepped up and who have become voices. I'm thinking of a 6-year-old girl I saw on television today, the police chief in Flint, Michigan, and I'm sure we all have many examples of people who are ordinary but above ordinary. And
yeah.
then I also think, and I don't know if these fit into the category you're talking about, people who saw something and decided to do something big. And I think of two people I know who started organizations to affect change.
Yeah.
And both of the organizations have become fairly large and impactful. One is Literature for All of Us, which is an organization that works with at-risk teens and teen mothers about literacy and writing and has impacted numerous lives. And the other is the Small Business Advocacy Council that was started by Elliot Richardson, who ran for office and lost in the primary, but took that experience, and because he had spoken to so many business owners that felt they didn't have a voice, started this organization that is now really known throughout the state of Illinois.
Thank you. People hear the summons. One sec, Marilu. People hear the summons and they act in a way that creates impact. It may be a regular person who hears the call and steps up and creates an impact that improves society, and we stand with gratitude. George Floyd and those who have died because of acts of blatant racism, because of police brutality, because of other forms of bigotry, are unwitting messengers. I grieve the reality that sometimes people in their deaths become these unintended messengers. These deaths aren't utilitarian to send us messages. They happen because of brutality, because of racism. And so if the message is that we better wake up, then it's a powerful message. I just want to say that the message that George Floyd brings, if you capture it in the words, "I can't breathe," is not a message that his fellow Black community hasn't heard before. They unfortunately have heard that too many times.
We have heard it.
So they would say, I'm guessing, knowing the message and knowing how many people in fact haven't heard the message, that if we're going to make George's loss matter, if we're going to make Tony McDade's loss matter, if we're going to make Ahmaud Arbery's loss matter, Breonna Taylor's loss matter, or Manuel Ellis, these are a number of individuals who have died at the hands of brutal police officers, not unbrutal police officers, brutal police officers. There's a difference, right? And or died because of racism. It is vital that we recognize that to make their losses matter, and any losses due to racism matter. We must confront racism, and we must confront it beyond the power of protest. Protest is one of many steps. What I'm interested in, what message I'm interested in, what message I take away from Mr. Floyd's terrible death, and I wish he didn't die to teach us this. And I don't believe he died to teach us this. He died because of brutality and racism. But if we're going to make his loss matter, his loss teaches us that we have to confront racism as an issue that affects us all, as an issue for which we are all responsible for. We cannot just protest and celebrate that Black Lives Matter. We have to do that plus so much more. We have to look in our own mirrors, right? We owe George Floyd that. We owe all the others who've died, whether it's because of police brutality or racism, we owe them our own commitment to growth, and moral courage, and to confront one another when things are wrong. So, you're right. There are messages in these deaths. I just wish they didn't have to die to somehow create the receptivity for the message. But we shouldn't be surprised. The Black community is not surprised. We shouldn't be so surprised either. We should be angry about it, but we should figure out what to do over the long run to fix it. Marilyn, please. Thank you for listening.
Okay. I think I absolutely agree with you. But there's another element that comes out now that everyone's home and everyone's watching television or looking at social media. Everyone's doing this, right? So when you say about ordinary people going about their tasks in holy anonymity, I think it's appreciating these horrible people who showed us through their deaths the message. But there's people who also are showing us in their lives the message. And they didn't. No, actually they do. I mean, people look at EMT, emergency ambulance drivers who make like, I mean, who knew this? They make like so little money that they have to take other jobs in order to be an EMT worker. I mean, people who work at jobs that we now know in hospitals are so dangerous. And they're going about their ordinary holy anonymity, except right now they're not that anonymous, although mainly what people say is our thoughts and prayers and all this stuff that they say that isn't really doing anything for those people. So they've come into recognition. Their tasks of holy anonymity have come forward in this pandemic.
Yeah. Well, for sure. So your point is well taken. With social media, with the really profound lack of anonymity.
Yeah.
I mean, on some levels, right, the reason why we are talking about George Floyd with the kind of emotional power and authentic concern that is perhaps unusual relative to maybe all the other cases of police brutality and or racism in general is because we saw with our own eyes his murder we have a common basis for reality. Can't escape it. Can't escape the reality. Can't spin it in any different way. What we saw was murderous and horrible and haunting. And we have work to do. So the reality is most people are not sending us a message vis-a-vis their lives lost or stolen. Most people are ordinary people trying to make their way, trying to get through common challenges, trying to make a difference in their workplaces. And we've learned in this pandemic that there are regular people who are transcending the challenges, even as they are burdened by them, but having to fight an uphill battle against economic repression and racism and sexism. Right? They become everyday messengers that the world has to change, and that we have to create greater balance and equality. We have to live more according to the notion that we are created in God's image, full of intrinsic worth. And to really act as though that's true and not be comfortable in our safe spaces. You know, if anything, this is an opportunity not to just look at racism, but privilege. But Mary Lou, I like your point for a lot of reasons, but primarily because it reflects that there are a lot of lessons to learn in life, and we should be looking at it in all sorts of different places, not just on the news, and not just in terms of these spectacular breakdowns of morality. There are a lot of people who are doing the right thing day in and day out and need to be paid attention to, should dwell in such anonymity. It reminds me that sometimes the anonymity is a function not so much of one's own intention to be anonymous or to be not aware of their potential impact in a situation. Sometimes they're anonymous because they're invisible to us.
Yes, that's what I originally meant to say.
Yeah.
They were invisible, but maybe now they're not as invisible.
Yeah, well put. Anonymity is a function of internal understanding of one's place or lack thereof, and just somebody who's a mensch who just kind of brings that menschlichkeit along, and they're just sort of oblivious to the impact they're making, right? Until you tell them, wow, you're such a mensch. And they say, oh, I am? Wow. You know, or you know, there's good people out there we're ignoring. Maybe because of the color of their skin or their gender or their sexuality or something else that stokes prejudice in us. Or maybe we're just too busy to pay attention, right? We can be too busy to pay attention. And the moment calls us not to be so busy as to ignore and not pay attention. We can use this as an opportunity. Like I said before, having protests, doing marches, having special solidarity services like we're going to do tonight, they all do their part. But what we're really looking for is to carry this message forward, this message of change forward over a long period of time. Consistency over time. Not just when the emotions are most high. We as an American people do some of our best work when we are emotionally driven, often by terrible adversity, breakdowns, what have you, right? It could be a natural disaster, it could be 9/11, it could be a response to George Floyd and others. We are passionate passionate seekers of justice when we were emotionally driven. We need to be emotionally driven when it's not so spectacular, when things are more mundane, more ordinary. I think that's the key here. Some of our most important messages come not in the gruesome death of George Floyd, although that's certainly a powerful message. They've got to come beyond that in more everyday, normal, less gruesome ways. If we're going to reflect that we've really learned and grown. When the stakes aren't as high, are we just as open? Are we just as committed to fighting our own racism? Okay. Any other thoughts? Ben, I think I saw your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to mention the
Iris.
righteous Gentiles from the Shoah.
What about them, Ben?
They were ordinary people who took the extreme risks of assisting and protecting their Jewish neighbors and friends,
Right.
business partners.
So our survival as a Jewish people depended heavily on regular people who knew the difference between right and wrong and put their lives on the line without fanfare. They had to stay anonymous, obviously. Otherwise, they put their lives on the line more so than they already have.
Right.
So they had to lay low. They just had to keep it on the low down, and did profound work to support some of our survival. You know, the parts they could control, they did their best, and for that we are eternally grateful. By the way, to the extent that the righteous Gentiles, the righteous Christians, as I prefer to call them, performed an errand, as you will, that is extended over multiple generations. Our debt to the righteous Christians is as powerful as it is those whom they help directly. Now, why is it? I mean, it's an aspiration that it's as powerful. It may not feel as emotionally powerful, but why should we summon the great power of their impact in our own lives? Why is it important for us to do that?
The concept of pay it forward.
Yeah.
One thing that comes to mind. I mean, it's really an incredible debt that we as people owe righteous Christians.
Yeah, for sure. And there's going to come a point in time where those whom they affected directly, whose lives they actually saved, will all be gone.
Yeah.
And then what? Right? So we, when it comes to our essential narratives, our Passover narrative, our enslavement narrative, we have to treat Passover as though we are slaves still.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how are we going to develop the empathy? So when it comes time for all those who survived the Shoah to leave us, nobody left with firsthand account of what they went through. No righteous Christians left with firsthand account of what they went through to support and save and rescue people, Jewish people and others. We're going to have to find a way to bring that empathy to bear.
Rabbi,
Yes.
can we stop saying righteous Christians, because they were righteous Gentiles? Not all of them were Christian.
Right.
Fine. Well, Gentile's not a great word either. So for what it's worth,
Non-Jews.
we can, the point is we need to remember them. We can work on our language. Iris, I think you had a question.
I did. Well, I had two comments.
Yes, please.
The first one, you talked about the Black community, many of them not being surprised at what happened. And I just wanted to relate that my son is a musician and a music producer in Los Angeles and works with a lot of hip hop and rap artists. And he said to me a couple of times over these past few days that his friends were not surprised. His
Yeah.
friends were saddened, but they were not shocked at what happened. It's all too common, which is a horrible commentary. But I think we all have come to accept that. The other thing I just wanted to relate was I'm reading this book called The Guest Book, which is a wonderful book. And there was a quote in there. The book goes from the 30s to the 50s to the 2010s, back and forth. And this quote, I read this quote last night, and the person said it about Germany in the 30s, but it really is very relevant today. There is the crime and there is the silence.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to share that. And it's time for us not to be silent, I guess, that's.
So, yes. So these are powerful comments, Iris. Everybody has contributed powerfully today in one way or another. There's the crime and there's the silence.
Well, as many Black people, Black columnists have said, they can't fix it. We can.
Well, right, because it has to do with where the power lies.
Exactly.
Right? Racism is a function of the person who has the power. In this country, because of the white majority and because of the white culture, the power is held by that majority, right? And even within that majority, there are hierarchies of who has more power, right?
Right.
White men, theoretically, in this construct, have the most power. Not only that, the most unassailable power.
Not so much theoretical.
What's that now? Well, I understand.
That white men have the most power.
Well, I understand. I'm reporting here.
Okay.
I'm reporting. I'm going to finish my point, and you'll see
Right.
that this is not. I'm not taking you down a rabbit hole of craziness. Like, the rabbi has gone off the deep end.
No.
I, as a white male, heteronormative, have to be on constant alert to the things I might say that may reflect a certain bias, a certain prejudice, a certain privilege. Constantly. And I also have the privilege in this society to escape into it all and be silent and not have to pay attention if I want, right? To people who feel oppressed because of race or because of gender, because of sexuality, or because of economics. That's what it means. And if we study racism, this is a problem that I have because I occupy all these places of power, positions of power. So in order to minimize that bias or prejudice, I have to really look in the mirror and make sure that I'm not overthinking.
And you have a bully pulpit.
Exactly, right? So I have to be even that much more careful. And I have to say things like, well, you know, I need to make sure, since I'm white and male and heteronormative, blah, 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 I need to make sure that somebody else weighs in, creates a certain balance of perspective that says, hey, Rabbi, you know, you may not realize this, but you're coming from a place of bias. And here's how it affects me. And I have to say,
Rabbi?
okay, I'll listen and I'll do my best to change. If I'm going to fight my own prejudice. Okay, so the invitation belongs to us all. particularly as it pertains to race, right? Because if we are white, then those who teach about combating racism will tell us, well, you can always escape into that,
But Rabbi,
not even realizing. Yes, Devorah.
that's an important piece of it. But the other piece that I know that I often just let it go is not calling people out when they are. And
It's
that's,
sort of the challenge, Devorah. I have the
That's-
same challenge some days.
yeah, because that's where, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard a relative say something that because of Shalom Bait and all that kind of stuff, I don't want to make it. But I think we have to start rocking the boat more often and saying, wait, that's not acceptable. That's got to stop.
Yes, that is
That's
correct.
my own personal thing.
But it requires us to understand how sometimes our silence, to your point, Iris, becomes part of the crime, right?
Yeah.
I'm reading on Facebook about somebody who wonders if all the Black Lives Matter signs in the storefronts are going to mean much once all the protests die down. When all the emotions sort of even out and we've created enough distance as white folks from George Floyd's death.
And all the buildings that can be restored and rebuilt, and deserts exist again in the areas that were most dramatically destroyed.
All I'm saying is that this effort of really solid reflection and understanding that we have these puzzle pieces coming from left and right to help us grow, it's going to require us a long period of consistent effort to really shift and change. And, you know, I think that's going to be the key to success, right? It's not just getting the message and feeling powerful empathy for it, but in building change, real change that lasts. So Ben, and then back to Iris. Iris, I see the gears in your mind spinning. I'd like to tap into that in a minute, but Ben, please.
In response to the idea that by virtue of being white, or I would say in our case, perhaps Ashkenazic, we can just kind of blend back into the fold and leave the struggle. My statement on that is conceivably we could run, but we can't hide.
Fine, you're right. The moment tells us, just like Jonah, run all you want from the responsibility, but you cannot hide. It will catch up one way or another.
Yep.
Right? In the form of brutal surprise, in the form of apathy or silence. These are the hard lessons for us. By the way, I just want you to know that every word that I lay out for you, I feel is my own personal invitation for me to do exactly as I'm saying. It is a recognition that I have a long way to go before I'm properly awoke, as it were. Back to Iris.
Rabbi,
Oh wait, who's speaking?
Charlotte.
Charlotte Schwartz, can I say
Okay,
something?
fine, Charlotte. Go ahead.
I want to thank you for all your comments.
Oh,
and
thank you.
For Mary Lou also, particularly your emphasis in terms of the economic issues. And I am wondering, when the emotions die down, where is the movement going to come from?
Well, I mean, that's really the big question, right?
Yeah.
So there's no simple answer, but one of the things we've discussed, some of us already, in light of the holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot is an opportunity for us to reflect that the world is not quite as redeemed as Passover seemed to indicate it would be, right? Shavuot is more a reflection of the world as it is. So what becomes the bridge for us between the world as it is and the world as it should be? Anybody have an answer? Think Shavuot.
Torah.
Torah,
Yeah, Torah,
the
Ten
covenant.
Commandments.
The covenant is that bridge. The covenant is the language of our freedom. Recognizes that, yes, we may be free, but there are plenty of people who are not yet. We may not be as free as we'd like. And so we must engage in a life of Torah that recognizes that the world isn't as it should be, but that there's still stuff we can do on the way. We can love our neighbors. We can look in each other's eyes and see B'Tselem Elohim, that we're created in God's image, full of intrinsic worth. We can refrain from doing what is hateful. We can use Torah to modulate our freedom in such a way that allows us to be a force for good and to build the world as it should be, even though it is not, and to do so without completely losing hope, without being completely cynical, with being, faithful and perseverant and patient and resilient. We can use Torah to build the world we want to build. And that is not a panacea, but it's the best option we have, and it's an outstanding option. But it has to be done over time. This is the key. We are called to practice Torah not just during sacred moments. We're called to practice Torah not just during life cycle passages when our emotions are most full, happy, sad, somewhere in between. We are also called to practice Torah in ordinary moments that don't seem that meaningful. And it's in those moments I think we're going to see the greatest growth. Back to Iris.
I had to unmute because a helicopter went by. I think I was going to say that it is our responsibility to continue this and continue to support the Black community in any way that we can. I would like to hope that there's a way we can support Black businesses on the South Side and the West Side, which is not something I've done in the past, but I think it's part of our responsibility. And somebody either said earlier this morning, or I also heard it on television, if racism is the problem, only white people can fix that.
Right, because racism ultimately is a what I would call a power calculus, right? It's
Yeah.
You have to have power to be racist.
Yes, and it is a white issue.
Yes. Now,
So-
all human beings are capable of prejudice. Anybody can be prejudiced,
That's
but
true.
racism is a function of a white majority.
Right. So
And
only
white power.
we can fix that.
Only we can fix that. Now, to your point, and really more to Brian Stevenson's point in Just Mercy, which I recommend, especially now, but it's always
great
wise.
movie.
Brian
Great.
Stevenson, Just
Are you
Mercy.
talking the movie or the book?
Either way, the book I think is very powerful. I haven't seen the movie actually.
We saw the movie. It is very powerful.
Well, Brian Stevenson is a powerful storyteller, and he talks about getting proximate. So to me, getting proximate means getting near to people, confronting vulnerability, confronting disappointment, anger, rage, stepping into that space with humility and trying to figure out ultimately how to work towards reconciliation, right? Reconciliation means that we're going to find a way to carry forward together. Reconciliation means that we're going to find a way to seek forgiveness, grant forgiveness. We're going to, through reconciliation, find a way to sit around each other's dinner tables and have a meal. We are going to find a way to get together and pursue justice collectively, not just on behalf of someone or for someone. We are going to make our world better because we work together toward those improvements. That justice is something that we share. The desire for justice is something that we co-own, need to work together towards that. And this, by the way, is pertinent in any conversation we have about prejudice, about marginalization, right? Whether it's social or economic, moral, religious. I mean, reconciliation is the key to success. Not breaking down into moral silos, right? Not using our rage basically to eliminate the possibility for reconciliation. I understand the power of rage. When we are angry and rageful, we should be angry and rageful. There's plenty of things to be that mad about. But I do think the extent to which such rage lends only to shame and kind of moral siloization and no in between and no recognition of the big tent that marks our reality, then we end up, breaking down any possibilities for reconciliation. Of course, reconciliation is a personal choice. Everybody has to come to it kind of in an individual way. I can't say you should reconcile with so-and-so. I can encourage you, I can give you the reasons why it's a good idea, but ultimately you have to make the choice. I have to make the choice. All right, let me check in on Marcia.
Yes.
Marcia?
First of all, I have some comment about racism.
Yes.
Racism certainly is a problem, but you have to be more basic than that. Racism, I think, is a consequence of the real problem, which is human nature. And I wrote a piece about George Floyd, and it's going to be in the Tribune and New York Times. If you'd like for me to read it, I could.
So we have, here's the challenge we have. It'd be better if we read it, if it's lengthy.
Well, I don't think it's too lengthy.
How many words is it?
Gee, I don't, it's 4 paragraphs, like 3 sentences in each paragraph.
All right. Let us, why don't you send it to me and I'll send it to the group, if you'd like. How's that?
Okay.
Let's do it that way. And the reason is because I think 4 paragraphs will take us to the end of the time. And I would like, actually, with your permission, to catch one text about Gilgulim. Okay? So Marcia, let's figure out how to, if you'd like, since it's going public, if you'd like to share it with the group, we can find a way. Okay?
Sure.
All right. If you would like, I can give you a minute or so or two to give us the gist. In one sentence, what would you say is the issue?
The issue is that freedom is the problem and the solution. And we have freedom, but we also have choice, which is the responsibility. And with choice, we could change in such a way, change ourselves and change society.
Yes.
And it would be much better. It would end many of the social problems that we have experienced.
Well, that's a very thoughtful position, and I would agree with you. And to Charlotte's point, in terms of what do we do when the emotions level out and we get back to some semblance of whatever ordinary might end up meaning down the road? Are we going to push forward with the same kind of passion, which, by the way, doesn't have to be delivered with profound intensity? It needs to be sustained over time, which is going to require us to not be so powerfully intense, but to be more measured and consistent over time. You have defined, Marcia, the idea that Jewish freedom, I mean, you didn't say specifically Jewish freedom, but Jewish freedom is a function of responsibility.
Right.
Over time. So whether you have profound, passionate, electric emotions, or you're more even, doesn't matter. We got to extend over time. So whatever the emotions are, feel them in a sustainable way, and more importantly, act upon them in a sustainable way. Yes, Iris. No, I thought. Oh, it's your thing is up. Your little hand. All right. So let me just move here. Let's take a look at the sixth gate of Gilgulim. Probably seem anticlimactic at this point. This is very rich and very timely and very expectable conversation. So I was prepared to engage you today. So Gilgulim, sixth gate, circles of return. Let's see, Ben, returning to the mountain.
Returning to the mountain, return to the Brit. With those who are standing here with us today in the presence of the eternal, our God, and with those who are not here with us today, from Deuteronomy 29:14.
Okay, anybody know, first of all, what Torah portion this is and when else we read it?
Is this Hazinu? Or Viat? It is Hazinu?
No.
Viat Hanan?
No.
All right. I don't know.
It's Parshat Nitzavim.
Okay, that would make sense.
And we read Nitzavim not only during Nitzavim, but when else? During Yom Kippur.
Okay.
All right. So here we have our ancestors standing with special attention at the mountain, receiving Torah, receiving the charge that we've spoken of here today, that Marcia just so articulately reflected, that we have responsibilities as a function of our freedom. Responsibilities for B'Tselem Elohim, for Tikkun Olam, for Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, loving our neighbors, for seeking justice, for being compassionate. Those responsibilities recycle over and over again every time we stand at Sinai, be it during Nitzavim, be it during Shavuot, be it at a bar bat mitzvah, being at any other covenantal ceremony that we have. We're always returning to the mountain, always returning to the covenant, always returning to the responsibility of our freedom. And it's not just our ancestors way back when. Somehow they live through us. It's a form of reincarnation. It's a form of Gilgulim, circles of return. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at one more text. All right. Let's see. Marilou, please. Everything returns. Oh, unmute. There you
Sorry.
go. No problem.
Everything returns, comes back to that which it was. This is not futility. It is fulfillment. A generation goes, and a generation comes. The earth remains forever, and the sun rises and sets and glides back to where it rises. All the people in all the cars, on all the roads that ever were or ever will be, are on the same clover leaf. Only none of the exit ramps have tangents. They only lead to another ramp, which is itself a circle. It appears as though you're getting off, but you're only getting on. This getting on is itself another exit. And of course, it is really only one circle. And the circle is actually a sphere. Space and time are most certainly curved in a perfect curve.
My friends,
The same circle in one sphere.
We'll talk tomorrow.
The first man and the last man. That's it now. Religious time knows this, just as religious ritual intends to sustain the circle. Just as religious myth means to remember it, or to keep it ever in our awareness.
All right.
Wow.
Every road leads to another road of becoming. So there's no stopping. Over time, the roads that belong to us are the same roads that belong to our ancestors, are the same roads that will belong to our descendants. We may look at those roads a little differently depending on our time and our perspective. But at the end of the day, there is a sense of return. And I think that this road of Torah ultimately is reflected in the fact that we read it over and over and over again.
Rabbi, it's
Yeah.
too bad you don't have the picture.
Right. I will prepare the picture for next time. Thank you for that. You have the book, don't you?
I did. I got it yesterday.
Okay. I will. We will review this because we're going to have to stop for now. So we'll take a look at the visuals to try and explain this. I had to fit stuff into slides, and the pictures didn't quite fit into the slides. So they also didn't convey when I copied the material from the book into the. So I have to figure that out.
I was going to say it was very helpful to me,
Good.
surprisingly, but
Well, I'll take that as an invitation. I do thank you for bringing that up. I was wondering if it would be a bother to some who had seen the pictures if I didn't bring it. So others will benefit if you don't have the book. We'll show you the visuals here because it's a little hard to maybe picture here. So
it is.
Rabbi Kushner's good at conveying these abstract ideas through drawings. So why don't we stop there? Considering our road doesn't really ever end, we will pick up next time on this really complex and wonderful road. I want to just congratulate you and say kol hakavod and thank you for the richness of this experience. There's real thinking and feeling going on here in our group. And I appreciate today's conversation, but I always appreciate our conversations because of the depth that you all bring. And so I really am most grateful. So I wish you Shabbat Shalom. Hope we'll see you tonight. We're doing special solidarity memorial service. I'll be talking about life and the challenges we're living in and the opportunities we have. And we'll have a number of participants from various faith communities participating as well as part of ECRA. And tonight is one step, believe me, no matter what you take away from the service, plus, minus, or indifferent, and I hope it's mostly plus, in terms of purpose and depth of feeling. But that's up to you and up to us to sort of work on that together. But whatever we do tonight is one of many steps ahead. Mark my words, we have a lot of steps ahead of us. This is one of them. Yes.
Is there a class Sunday at 11?
There is. It's a life of meaning.
Thank you. All right.
Meaning class. And,
Will Rabbi,
yeah.
will tonight's service be recorded?
It will be recorded, yes. So if tonight is a busy night for you for other reasons, Gay Gesint, Shabbat Shalom, and you can check us out, at 2 a.m. if you want.
Okay.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Blessings.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank
Rabbi.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye.
Bye, Sammy.